What episode? We're episode 42 of the MMA Creators Podcast. You know the drill. I mean, where do we even start? I've got a little list of things we can get into, but is there anything you want to get off your chest at all?
Put me on the spot with that one.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, there is.
What was it? That?
Yeah, there is actually. Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
No, nothing more than that. No, the thing that I want to get off my chest is not why, but okay, I guess the question is why. Why are the UFC icing Conor McGregor?
This is what I was actually going to get into. This is the first topic I had written down. I didn't watch the full interview, but I don't know if you had a little glance at the one he did with Adam Catterall on TalkSport the other day. And you could see how frustrated he was about, as you said, being put on ice by the UFC, no communication, lack of fighting. And he even admitted himself that that's what's sort of making him go off the deep end a bit when he's not fighting. Perfect example of that was the other week when he was clearly coked up beyond belief. I think that was clear to just about everybody. And I know you spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. You said the same thing, that the UFC, we were having a bit of a debate about it because we weren't really sure what was going on. It was when he announced the fight with Michael Chandler for June or July at the time. And obviously they were playing around with the dates, and you said it was the UFC's fault. And I'm starting to agree with you now. It's clear, I think, to most people that the UFC sort of trapping Conor, maybe similar to a Nate Diaz situation, when he fought Hamzat Chimaev at UFC 279. It's really weird. I don't understand why you just keep your top build star, your best guy, the most reliable man in the company in terms of drawing numbers. It doesn't matter who you put him against. He's going to sell pay-per-views. And you're wasting his prime years. Well, he's past his prime now. The last few years he has left.
There's only two reasons that this is for. There's only two reasons that this could possibly be down to. Number one, the TV rights deal. So they're trying to essentially hold that trump card for as long as possible so they can get the leverage before they renegotiate their TV licensing deals. That's the first one. And number two, it's because Conor won't sign an elaborate 8-fight contract. He won't sign that. He's probably fighting not any more than 2 times in the UFC, I think would be fair to say.
I think 3 at a push. I think maybe 3. You give him Chandler, then maybe the Diaz trilogy match, or Poirier. It's got to be those 3 in some capacity, I think.
Maybe. And from when he made his first professional debut to when he became a UFC double champion, he had 24 bouts. 24. Now, in that same period of time, since then until now, in that same amount of years as a window, he's had 4.
Ridiculous.
So, although I think 3 is possible, and I think there is a possibility, I think if we're going to be realistic, it's not going to be any more than 2. And in all honesty, maybe it's never again. Honestly, maybe it's never again.
I could see it. Honestly, yeah, I could see it. And in that note, what do you do with Michael Chandler if that's the case? A man who's kind of in a weirdly similar position and perhaps a bit more self-inflicted. But I mean, in terms of his age and where he's at and the stage of he's at in his career, his prime years are now gone. I don't think that's any debate anymore. And he's risking his sort of rest of his UFC tenure for this big money fight. But what I don't understand is there's no doubt Michael Chandler's going to be paid reasonably well, but he's not going to be paid any more than he is against a regular matchup, if I'm not mistaken. He's not a champion. This is the biggest myth. I've been thinking about this all week. I don't really understand where this whole red panty night sort of thing comes from, because that only applies to champions. And it was originally was said to RDA, and that made sense because RDA at the time was the lightweight champion and would have got pay-per-view points. Same with AD Alvarez. Everyone else he's fought in that time, it's just a normal fight. Donald Cerrone came out recently on a podcast, said he was paid just this normal rate, despite the fact that there was this big narrative going around that Cerrone was getting this big payday, etc., etc. And I'm sure there might be outlying circumstances, but I don't really get it.
The counter to that is, because you're right, and this is always the biggest misconception. People think you get paid more against Conor McGregor. You don't. You get paid what you're contracted to get paid. If you're a champion, or if you're a champion on the card, like you said, is happy days. I can't remember the fight. Maybe it was Holly Holm when she was a champion. I can't remember. But I remember they came out and said, yeah, red panty night's a very real thing. They made absolute bank off of it. The only devil's advocate to that is if you're Michael Chandler is someone that does have a big brand. He has many different businesses attached to him, many different products, many different services, I believe, all attached to his name and his brand. So
Good
what
point.
you get from that is the residual effect on your branding, on your products, on the exposure, and it just skyrockets your notoriety within the sport. If you have a look at Dustin Poirier, always a big star and wouldn't have got paid any more in that rematch, the first rematch, the second fight that they had. But then he goes back to Louisiana, and then in COVID, he has a hot sauce, and then off of the back of
That's a
collaborating
good
with
point.
one of the biggest mixed martial artists and people in the world, he then does tremendously well off the back of that, having a lot of promotional space. Then he gets his own day where he's from in Louisiana. I know that's not a monetary thing, but again, it's brand
Yeah,
awareness, right?
yeah.
And I think what you don't get in the short term in regards to a paycheck, you get in the long term that comes with fighting Conor McGregor. So yes, I don't think monetarily there's anything short term for him, but I think longer term from a business play, I think it's always a
I
smart
actually will
move.
counter that just for a moment because there are circumstances, if I'm not mistaken, where the UFC do pay extra or a sort of
For
different
sure.
amount due to various circumstances. I think Kevin Holland was paid a lot because of his short notice replacement against Shimaev. I'm sure he got paid handsomely. I'm pretty sure. I could be mistaken there. There's been numerous examples of that. So I'm not sure if that applied to some of the fighters that Conor McGregor has faced in the past, maybe Dustin Poirier, but that's hearsay. I don't know too much, but it is an interesting circumstance. And as we sort of get closer, well, I say get closer, this fight, it does really feel like it might not ever happen, as you said, and we might not even see McGregor in the cage again. And it almost feels like we've regressed back to sort of at that previous stage, Conor McGregor after he got injured against Dustin Poirier in the third match. You know, we felt like maybe it was over the hill, but now we've gone back down, and we've seen him obviously under the influence of drugs and coke, etc. It just, yeah, it feels like we're far away. I think that's probably the phrase I'd use.
The thing I always say, and I always bring it back to this, and it's 100% true, is if you go back and watch his documentaries, where it's a very candid, transparent look into his life, this issue has been prominent for pretty much the better part of his career in the UFC. This is an issue he's had for a very long time. And you can say whatever you want about him, but there is a certain level of activity that man wants to keep. He's still a competitor, he's still an athlete. And I always say to people, yes, he doesn't always live the best lifestyle for an athlete, 100% not, but he's never in bad shape. He never blows up, he never gets fat, you'll never see him with a beer belly. You see plenty of other people like that. I've never seen him like that.
Jamal Hill, good lord.
I think he just has that soft look anyway, so it's quite easy for
Yeah,
him to
yeah, he
pack on a
does.
few
Yeah,
pounds. But yeah, I think with that, he doesn't want to get tied into that 8 fight contract because realistically, he probably wants to box. He probably wants to go over and have some crazy fight in Saudi with a Manny Pacquiao for 40 million.
it's so frustrating though, isn't it? Really, no one wants to see that. Realistically, do you want to see that?
Really?
Like, answer that right now. No, exactly. It
I'll
will
watch it.
sell, but it's just like, yeah, I'll watch it. Russian link. That's what I'll do.
But that's the thing, right? He's going to have His Excellency in his ear giving him all sorts of very, very flattering offers. And I don't know. I don't know what the UFC are going to do about it. I think that they need to just get the fights. That's what they need to do. And then work everything out else on the back end because maybe they're looking at it at a point where, okay, we've juiced everything we can to, not everything, we've juiced his prime out of him. And now he is still a big name and we have still got a couple of fights left. Who can we give him to accelerate? Because Michael Chandler, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Stylistically, it
I
makes
think
a lot of
it's they're
sense.
probably the best for him.
But it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Because it doesn't take Chandler to a new stratosphere? I don't believe, because he's already very, very, very high at that top of popularity and brand. But what would it do to a Paddy Pimblett?
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I get what you're saying. It feels like there's not really much potential for like Chandler to
It's
really
hard to push
go
him
further.
more.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, he's not
Yeah.
a million miles off of where his ceiling will be as a start. You can't listen to that man speak for too long. It's honestly painful. But you got to look back in the division a little bit and think, right, okay, who's going to be around for a bit longer? Who can we make big pay-per-views of? Who talks a good game? Who handles himself in the octagon? Now, everyone is quick to say, oh, Paddy's nowhere near McGregor. People are missing the point. They're missing
Yeah,
the
it ain't
point.
about that.
It's nothing about that
Ain't
at
about
all.
that at all.
It's about building someone to where they can have this sort of kingpin, if you like. And yeah, the next person probably isn't going to do it like McGregor, because no one likely will. But I've been saying for the longest time, they've wanted to make that Paddy Pimblett fight deep down since he was in Cage Warriors. It's made all the sense in the world. And I'm getting
You think it's going to
more.
happen?
I think it's getting more confident. I still think we're a million miles away, don't get me wrong. But
yeah, it's never simple with McGregor.
I don't think it's that far. Listen, let me just, we'll finish on this and we'll move on, right? Let me just paint a quick picture. Let's say, and we're talking big ifs, but let's say the UFC go to Manchester and they have a headliner of Paddy Pimblett, Renato Moicano, right? And let's say Paddy Pimblett goes out there and does what he's done every single time he stepped in a UFC octagon and won. And let's say he does what he's done the majority of those times and get a finish, maybe in grappling exchanges, maybe on the feet, who knows? Big ifs, but still. Has a really good build up to the week, has a lot of energy around him in the crowd, being local hometown boy. Very impressive finish over a top 15 opponent. You're in the conversation. You don't need anything else. If you're in the rankings and you're a big name, you're in the McGregor conversations. You don't need to be fighting for a title or a championship or have a win over this. No, it's all irrelevant. Are you ranked? Have you got hype? And are you known? Cool.
That's what it is. Yeah.
You know, like, it's not far away. It really isn't. People hate it when I say
that. Yeah. I get it. I mean, Chandler, Pimblett, you know, speaking of other fights that probably won't happen, Tom Aspinall versus John Jones faced off.
Nice.
You know, there was a face-off there with that little smile. You know that smile that John Jones does, and it is the fakest facade of like a man just feigning innocence and kindness. And you know behind that face, he is absolutely furious or just doesn't care at all. Honestly, that interaction made me kind of uncomfortable because it was so fake. It just kind of made me cringe a little bit because you could see the tension between them was so there. I mean, it was entertaining in that regard, I suppose. But for me, it just was frustrating more than anything because you could obviously Aspinall wants that fight. I think the world wants that fight. John Jones is probably the only one that doesn't. And that is disappointing. But it was still entertaining. I'm glad we got them meeting for the first time at least because I feel like that's been long overdue. What did you think about the whole thing?
I think that Tom Aspinall understands the game. He finally understands the game and how to play it authentically because he goes up there to have the conversation with John Jones. Smart idea, good, loads of cameras around. And then he asks very cheekily for a face-off. Quite respectfully, but asks for the face-off. Great idea because he understands that fight is nowhere near happening at the moment. If they can get any sort of promotional coverage, any sort of exposure of the two together, facing each other, crowds around, lots of cameras, there's going to be something. There's going to be a small but more definitive drop of hope for Tom Aspinall getting that fight because the UFC can start running with some promotion, can start running with some coverage. Really smart idea. Like I said, he done it respectfully. John looked at him as if you are crazy. I'm not doing that.
Oh my God.
Tom was cool. Let's have a photo. So it's nice to see that he gets it. He gets the game. He gets it. He understands it. Let's give the people a little something.
I mean, he always has. He always has. There's a lot of fighters that do that.
I think he's understanding it more now, more than he's ever.
I don't mean in terms of like trying to brew quote unquote controversy or building fights, but I mean in just terms of being the modern fighter inside and out of the cage. I think he does that very well. In terms of coverage, he's got a whole group of people that film his escapades, if you will, on YouTube and other platforms, of course. And he's really good at pushing that. Aljamain Sterling's another great example of that. And you've seen that with loads of fighters. Just Engage, he's just been pushing new content. Max Holloway as well. He's been doing it for a while. They're very good at that. And I think Aspinall's probably one of the best out of all the fighters I can think of off the top of my head. I think Tom does it better than most in terms of the team he has behind him. So I think he's always done it well. But I get what you're saying in terms of being a bit more fight savvy. I agree.
You have to have that now to be a champion, and it's sometimes a bitter pill to swallow for some athletes because it's one of the toughest, if not the toughest sport in the world. And then on top of that, you're having to tell them, okay, you need to be a media darling as well. Not necessarily, but you just have to understand how the game works. You have to understand how the cogs spin. And a name that you missed off on that, which I don't know, I would probably say they're one of the best we've ever seen. It's probably Israel, to be honest.
Yes,
It's probably Israel.
Yeah, 100% the best.
In regards to building up next fights, in regards to making sure they've got a soundbite, making sure they've got videos or photos together.
Another one.
So many of these people now, they're realizing and understanding that this game is multifaceted. And yes, you have to take care of business in the cage. That's first and foremost. But second to that, you have to outside of it as well. You have to build your brand. You have to build fights. You have to build intrigue. And we're seeing different people do that in an authentic manner now. Because of course you have McGregor. But what then happened is people then thought, okay, that's how I have to do it. No. McGregor was successful because of authenticity and he was very candid. But then a lot of people became quite forced. Then you have a look at people like Volkanovski and Tom Aspinall, and it's very natural and authentic.
New era.
A new era. But people just sort of understanding now that they can shape an audience with their own outlook on things and do it in a more authentic way. I think Tom Aspinall's doing a good job of that for sure.
Something that was quite surprising this week, I feel like we just can't not bring up.
Yes, I know where you're going.
I don't know if you do.
I do.
UFC 301.
Yes.
There's two ways I can go with this. The first of which I was going to mention was Steve Erceg getting a title shot at being the number 10 ranked in the flyweight division, which is quite a shock. I completely didn't expect that out of the blue. But in a way, it doesn't surprise me because obviously it's a good platform to showcase Erceg's ability. But also, he's got knockout power. And as a fighter, if you just want to look at it purely from a in-cage perspective, he's very entertaining. Probably more than most in the flyweight division. And obviously, it's also an opportunity to dip their toes again into the sort of Oceania, Australia market. There's always going to be a positive. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, that is the first time a contender that is at least ranked 10 or below has got a title shot since. I'm going to give you a guess here. See if you could. Do you know the answer?
Dan
I could
Henderson.
be wrong here. That was where I was going with it. Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping 2. That may have been the last time. I could have been wrong. Probably am. There's loads of answers, but it is quite a rare occasion. Is my point, and I honestly, as a matchup, I do prefer it to the Makayev one, which obviously was being touted. Mohammed was pushing for it a lot in the last coming weeks, and I don't blame him. I think in principle he probably deserves it right now,
for sure,
in this gap, whilst some other guys like Albazi are out injured. But if you want a fight that sells between those two, you're picking the Steve Erceg matchup, if you ask me. So, yeah. Actually, I take that back. I think which one's more entertaining.
I don't know.
Sorry. Which one's more entertaining, the Erceg one? Which one sells more than the Makayev one? Which is actually a good point. It's an interesting decision they've made there, but I guess they're just planning for the future. And I guess we can just jump into a prediction for it, even though we're a little bit early and 301's still a little while away. Erceg's obviously more of a grappler by trade, but I don't know.
It's mixed martial arts.
It's a tough one. Yeah, that's probably the phrase, is the better phrase. I'd actually probably go to Erceg because obviously we talk a lot about age being a huge factor, and there's none more so than at flyweight division, in which speed is the most paramount out of all the divisions because it's the lightest. And obviously, as you get older, the speed is the first thing to drop off. Those split-second reaction times, they drop off first. So that's why you see the biggest declines earlier in flyweight division, of course. That's nothing new. And Pantoja is he 35, I believe?
Yeah, 34.
And that is quite abnormal for a flyweight to be at the top level for that long. So that is a testament to his ability, but you have to wonder when that drop off is going to come. And he did look good against Brandon Royval, but he also has taken a lot of damage in his last few fights, particularly against Moreno in that obviously fight of the year contender last year. So for me, there's a lot of pointers saying that potentially Usyk takes it, and that's kind of where I'm leaning. Just again, youth over experience, which is been a real pattern over the last like 2 years. I think in particular, it's been a big talking point, and I think that might be the difference maker.
It's hard to bet against Pantoja. It really
It
is.
is. It
And
is.
I rate him for coming out and saying, you know what, I've beaten everyone. Give me someone unknown. Give me someone. And that's an important thing to know as well, because this is probably going to be the most energized that he's going to be in a camp for a very long time. A very long time. Because a lot of these fights, they're rematches that he's already won. So not only are you preparing for the same opponent, you're preparing for the same opponent that you've beaten. So obviously there's still a lot on the line and he's going to be energized and motivated, of course. But a new opponent, home crowd, at the peak of his
That's a good point as
powers
well.
in regards to his career. He's at the peak of where he's been. He's got the most popularity he's ever had. He's really turning into a little bit of a star in the UFC, and he's coming. He's
I
coming
wouldn't go
home.
that far. I wouldn't go that far. I think just being intrinsically the fact that he's a flyweight, I think that's the difference maker. It's so hard to. It shouldn't be like that, but that is how it is.
I don't believe that.
I feel like you're at an immediate disadvantage in terms of your potential and reach as a star, if you will, in the UFC. It doesn't matter if you're a champ or a contender. If you're at flyweight, I feel like that division is kind of just cursed in that regard. You know, even the best of flyweight, Brandon Moreno is probably the biggest example. Yes, he's a big name,
He's a
but
superstar.
he's not a pay per view seller. He just isn't.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't say he is.
a lot of people are not a pay-per-view seller, and to be honest, we don't ever know the numbers, so I can never say they are or they're wrong. You
I
know,
don't think you can
so
say with confidence that he sells well, though, can you?
I can
Realistically,
say with confidence he's a superstar.
but what does that mean? What's the definition of that in today's MMA age?
There is no definition. It's a feeling. It's a
Okay,
reaction.
all right.
It's not tangible. I can say Instagram followers, or it's just a feeling. It's an intuition, and also it's just a matter of fact. When I hear Dana speak and say when they do fan meet and greets, the most asked for and requested person is Brandon Moreno. That means something. That means something. That means a lot of fans are behind it. He was the first champion from a country like Mexico with a deep burning history in combat sports and fighting. So, and then obviously as well, he crosses over to a lot of different demographics. He crosses over more to the gaming demographic and the Lego demographic and the younger demographic.
The Lego demographic.
Mate, it's a big one, apparently. Honestly, it's a big one. I didn't realise how big it was.
The Lego demographic.
It's
The
true.
Lego enjoyers of the world.
It's a big
Yeah.
one. It's a big brand name, though. But all jokes aside, it's a big brand name
No,
that
you're
he's
right,
attached
you're right.
to. It's a big brand name for many, many years. It's been attached to one of the biggest global corporations in the world. So it is sort of superstar 100%. What I was coming back to the Steve Usyk thing is, obviously I won't get into it too much, but the one thing, the opportunities that I see him give him is, I think he nullifies all the ground game because he's so good there. He's such a good operator there. I don't think Pantoja is going to be able to get anything off there. So I think it stays standing. And Pantoja is very overwhelming. And
He's so hard to hit.
Yeah, he's obviously hard to
Yeah.
hit and he's hard to get to. But the thing is, he will crash forward to get to you. He will just bite down in his mouthpiece and throw big hooks and just try to get close to you. And Steve Usyk's a slick operator. We saw that left hook, that check left hook from the other week that he got the knockout with. And if he's just cutting angles like that and throwing picture perfect punches whilst Pantoja sort of gritting his teeth and coming forward.
Luxury. I really don't. I think that's something we haven't really seen. That
How do we know that?
But I think that's something we haven't really seen is Usyk really being pushed and fighting off the back foot. Because I think that's something Pantoja does really well is forcing guys to do that because obviously there's the threat of the takedown and because Pantoja's grappling and submission threat is dangerous. So he's able to force guys backwards with his striking. Usyk, against the Matt Schnell fight the other week or a couple of weeks ago, Schnell was a guy who was willing to trade in that pocket, so they were sort of swearing off against each
So's
other.
Pantoja.
But I don't know if we're going to see it in the same sort of way. They were both planting their feet in that fight and just slugging it. I don't think you're going to get it like that with the Pantoja fight personally. And I think
Oh,
Pantoja's going to push. He's going to push forward, and that's that's a big difference maker for me. I don't know whether Usyk will be able to handle that off the back foot. I do think he's probably got the advantage on the feet in terms of technical ability and striking capabilities. But yeah, it's such an interesting matchup, and the fact that it's come out of the blue like this makes it so exciting because it's fresh and it's kind of so difficult to predict because you've got a guy who's only had 3 fights in the division and in the UFC even versus, let's by all intents and purposes, a veteran of the game and a champ at the top level. So I'm excited for it. I have to say, like, it might not sell the numbers, the pay-per-views, but I think to the hardcore fan base, I think this is a great matchup. Personally, I don't know if it should be a main event, but hey,
veterans, legends, Rio, the king of Rio,
yeah,
the
very good.
return
Yes,
of the king of Rio out of absolutely nowhere. And you look at 299, you look at 300, and then you have a look at 301, regardless of the card, the return of the king of Rio is a big
I'm there
boy
for it,
couple of
man.
months in the UFC.
Real quick, do you mind? Real quick, can you just like come back from the camera a little bit? You just like gradually got closer and closer. Yeah, you were getting like
It's
right up in my
uncomfortable. I've
face.
got no back support. I'm getting
Yeah, no, I feel that.
I'm getting
Yeah, I was like, hang
passionate.
on, are you just gradually getting closer and closer? No, but yeah, I spoke about this on my stream on Sunday because right when it got announced, really, and I have such mixed feelings about it because if you just cast your mind back to when he retired against Merab Dvalishvili, I can't remember what card it was at, but it was in Utah. So what was that? I'm trying to test my knowledge. Two.
You're not autistic enough to be good at that.
No, I am. Don't. I'm thinking. It was the same card as Blachowicz versus Pereira. What was that? 291. It was 291. Yeah, exactly. I do know. So 291. You got. It was 291, right? I'm not crazy. Anyway, that retirement, it almost wasn't fit for a king
No.
like Jose Aldo. There's nothing wrong with going out on a loss. That's what happens to most guys in this game. And against the guy like Merab Dvalishvili, who in hindsight is one of the best in the division, he fought very admirably, better than most guys that Merab has steamrolled through. And at
I
his
think
age,
they're
that's
taken
so
down.
impressive. Yeah. And so in that case, I do get it. He clearly has realized he has got some stuff left in the tank. But at the same time, being inducted into the Hall of Fame, it felt final. It felt right. He put on a good performance, and you kind of you don't want to see these guys come back. And I understand it. I understand why they want to come back. They love fighting at the end of the day. They're fighters. They're born and bred. It's their bread and butter. It's their everything. And loads of fighters recently have come out and spoke about their struggles without fighting. Volkanovski, obviously a perfect example. So I understand it, and I'm sympathetic towards that. But as a fan, I don't know if I want to see it purely on the basis you don't really want to see a guy decline any further than they already have. And I know that's not saying
Didn't
much for Jose
decline.
Aldo. Yeah, exactly. But that's a luxury most guys don't get in this game. And I almost want Aldo to go out as he has. But at the same time, a fairy tale moment in Rio, I get it. I get with the circumstances around it. Any other fight card, I probably would have been even more so towards the end of saying, no, don't come back. So I'm a bit on the fence with it, really. It's a tricky one. And against Martinez, who's a legit contender, I do think he's actually probably going to get the win because it's Jose Aldo. And yes, he is getting on a bit, but as I said, he's still got some gas left in the tank. So I'm excited. Match for the actual matchup, I think it's a fun one.
This is pound for pound the greatest low kicking match of all time.
Indeed.
For certain. Martinez is one of the most devastating calf kickers, and Jose Aldo is the most notorious leg kicker in the game, bar none. So this is going to be a fun fight. It's going to be a painful fight to watch, but I think this is a good matchup for Jose Aldo. He's not going to try and get wrestled. He's not going to try and get taken down, I don't think. So this is going to be a kickboxing match. And the last few fights that we saw Jose Aldo, he didn't miss a beat. He didn't miss a beat. He faced Merab Dvalishvili for 15 minutes, pedal to the floor with takedown attempts, and he stuffed every single one of them. Every
So, and he
single
beat Rob
one
Font,
of
Chito
them.
Vera, Pedro Munoz, all legit guys. I mean, obviously, Chito just fought for the title. So it shows you how, in hindsight, that's an even better win than it was at the time. He is still legit. And obviously, fighters can drop off sometimes far more drastically than most, right? Very quickly. It can just happen overnight almost. Doesn't really feel like that's happened with Aldo. So that's what I'm interested in. I think we'll know very quickly whether it was the right decision or not within the first few minutes of that. When they sort of lock horns, we'll know.
I just
And I almost
think
worry that if he does get the win, he's going to overstay as well. Come on, I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive. I'm not saying I want him to lose, but
against who? Like, who's
yeah,
going
I
to be
don't know.
overstaying his welcome
But like,
against who?
why is he coming back though? Because he's not realistically, he's not going to be winning a belt anytime soon,
Why not?
right?
He's one fight away from those sort of conversations.
Listen, I won't say no to anything in MMA because it's mixed martial arts.
Are you
But
joking? Think about
no,
this.
but like, you get
Think about
where
this.
I'm coming from, right?
Think about this, right? Sean O'Malley goes out there and he faces Merab and he knocks out Merab, right? Jose Aldo goes out there and he stops Martinez with a liver shot, right? And now all the timings are a bit weird.
Honestly, look at you planting these seeds, man. It's annoying.
All the matchups just so happen to fall in a strange position, and they've got a pay-per-view coming up, and they don't really know who to put on it. And Jose Aldo puts his hand up. Jose Aldo versus Sean O'Malley. It's not crazy. Like,
I
I
know
don't
it's not
think it's necessarily going to happen.
Crazy.
I don't think it's necessarily going to happen, but it's not. He's one win away from those sort of conversations. He really is.
And
What,
let's say hypothetically that happens, and then he wins.
A close decision to Merab. Like, yeah, most people, every single fan, if you said Jose Aldo lost to Merab, every single fan I've ever seen comment on that fight will say the same thing. Yeah, but like, it's pretty unanimous that it was like a draw fight. No one really won that. So
yeah,
there's still good feeling. There's still good sentiment towards him, not just because he's a legend.
But that was a while ago. Let's not get it twisted. Like, that was a bit of time ago now, right?
Yeah, now he's had a good bit of time. Think about it like this, right? If you have a good bit of time out in the sport, if
it wasn't
Jose
291
Aldo,
by the way. It was 278. It was they were both in Utah. Sorry,
I knew you was a mile. I knew you was a mile.
Yeah, well, I knew it was more way back before that. They were both events were in Utah, so I'll hold my hands up there.
The best thing for Jose Aldo at that point of his career, of course, if he retiring, of course, but it's having a little break. It's having a little physical, mental break from the game, getting your hunger back for that competition. You're not going to lose any skills. He's not going to lose much sharpness after he's had a camp. So realistically, he's going to be in good shape going into that camp. I can't imagine he gets fat and overweight. He goes in there. He sharpens up the skills that he's always had, which were elite when he left. And I think he's going to look just as good as he was when he left, to be honest. I don't... Obviously, it's impossible to tell. But I don't think he's going to...
Martinez.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to look weathered. I think he's going to rip to the body like he always does. I think he's going to try and blitz the legs like he always does. And I think it's going to be a fun fight. I think it's going to be a close fight. He's one of those
guys, he's got that perfect frame, which allows him to drop to bantamweight and actually succeed. You get a lot of guys, particularly in their later end of their career, either they'll move up or down just for a bit of variance and to chase a new goal, right? And rarely does it really work out. I can't think of a time off the top of my head, except from Jose Aldo, who's had success at a different weight division, especially in the later portions of their career. And at bantamweight, he looked, you could argue he looked better than he did at some points than he did at featherweight. It's quite incredible, really. And I guess that's just a testament to his ability and his longevity. So, yeah, listen, I've still got mixed feelings about his return. But as a fight fan, I can't be mad about it. It's Jose Aldo. It's a privilege to watch him step into the cage every time, especially for us, as for all intents and purposes, we're quite late fans
for sure
in terms of becoming MMA hardcores. We started watching 2019. I started watching 2018, 2019, and you about the same, right?
2020, roughly.
Yeah. So we are new, as I said. So we haven't seen Jose Aldo really fight in his prime, so it's any opportunity to really see him, at least in these later stages of his career, is a privilege. So yeah, as a fight fan, I'm optimistic. That's probably the word I'll use. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's jumped on. I mean, we can jump into some MMA creator stuff. Obviously, I've mentioned all of my streams in the last couple weeks that I've been doing my big project, which has coming along really nicely, not far off done now. Scheduled for 10 days from now. We're actually, to be honest, probably ahead of schedule now. About 70% done, I reckon. It's quite a big undertaking, I have to say, but I'm enjoying the process. And yeah, I don't really think there's too much to say on that, but I have got a brand deal in the works for that video, hopefully. So I've got a call scheduled for that, which I talked about that today. So I'm going to see how that goes. I won't get too much into it, but obviously you continuing your expeditions in Thailand for the foreseeable future. Saw you do your, is it week 3 of Muay Thai now for you?
Yeah, I did my third session the other day.
How
Third
was that?
session. It's fun. It's really fun actually. I really do enjoy it. Just with how everything's set up at the moment, it's not really geared towards me being able to do it sort of like every day. But when I go to the islands, I'm probably going to look to do it most days. So obviously, I'm going to be filming a lot more, but also getting a lot better. I find it obviously because I'm so new, and I understand decent amount of principles that when I go in there and learn it, I can understand, okay, right, I need to improve this, right, okay, I need to do that. And
That goes a long way.
yeah, I get quite a lot out of each one. And also I'm looking to improve. So it is really fun. I've really been enjoying them, to be honest. When I'll probably going to fly to Phuket this week in a couple of days, and I'll be working at Fight Circus.
Oh yeah, yeah. You mentioned that the other day. I had a look at that. Popped up on my feed again today or yesterday.
Yeah.
Interesting is probably how I describe it in one word. That's an understatement.
It's carnage. It's absolute
That's a better one.
carnage. Literally carnage. There will be ice skating, bare knuckle. There'll be midget pillow fights. There'll
This is
be
no. How does any of that get sanctioned? I'm willing to bet it doesn't get sanctioned
it.
remotely. None of that is.
It's Thailand.
Yeah, anything goes.
There are no rules. There are no sanctioning bodies. There is no
I tell you what, I'd like
USADA.
to see you do. I'd like to see those bars where they got the ring in the middle, and you can just jump in and fight.
I've
Get a
been to
couple
one.
pina coladas down you, and then
Ugh,
get in there.
pina
I'm
coladas
not really a pina
from
colada guy. It's just the first cocktail that came to me. I don't even
absolute
drink anymore. But even when I did, one of my favorite.
worst beverage, a milky
All right,
coconut
mojitos then,
alcoholic
mate.
drink. I like,
Mojitos. That was a classic. That was a
I
classic
like a
cocktail.
mojito, to be fair.
Yeah,
I
you
do
can't
like a
not. Right,
mojito.
get a couple of them down you, and then step in the ring and
The
film it.
drinks, the drinks
It'd
there
be
are
like a day in the
disgusting.
life, day in the life of a content creator, and then
Just
you get in the ring.
getting juiced up and getting in the
Yeah,
in the
I'd
fight
pay for
bar.
that. I'd pay for it.
That's
You ever thought
in
about
so
doing that?
mate, I thought about it when I was there last time. I'd never trained a day in my life, and I was half tempted. It's very
The
tempting when you
allure of the
get there.
fight game.
It's very tempting when you get there. I can't lie. I'd had a couple of drinks, not loads, but I'd had a couple, and I was just like, it looks pretty fun to be fair. It
Mate,
does
you're
look
right.
pretty
Just
fun.
see red. Just see red and you'll win.
It's kind of it's a lucky dip though because you can get some people, yeah, they've never trained a day in their life and they rock up and just have a bit of fun with it, and then you can get in there and these people are seriously trained. So it's
Mate.
it's very random who you're gonna face. But I've been there before, so it's in Koh Phi Phi, which is a small island off of Phuket, which most people will probably know it for the Monkey Beach. But yeah, you go in there and you don't pay entry. I think you have to buy a drink and then you can just go and watch it. And you get all shapes and sizes in there. Best believe that. But yeah, I'll be going to Fight Circus this weekend. There's quite a few people covering it that I sort of know of, mutually know. So it'd be kind of cool to go down there. And then after that, going to be going to Bangtao.
Nice.
I'm gonna spend a couple of days at Bangtao. I chat to the coaches there from time to time, the Hickman
Is there
brothers.
anyone in camp there right now?
I don't know who's there, but there's always faces there. So
Yeah.
I know Casey O'Neill's there at the moment. I know Kelvin Gastelum's there at the moment. I know Brendan Loughnane's there at the moment.
Yeah, he's there a lot. I
I
always see
can't
pictures of him
think
there.
of too many people off the top of my head, but there's always people going in and out. and it's always busy. It's always busy, and the gym is
For sure.
phenomenal. So I'm going to go down there for a few days and capture some content. But yeah, I just want to train a bit more. I'm probably going to go to Koh Samui or Koh Tao and probably do a little bit more. I'll probably spend a week or two, maybe 2 weeks at one of those islands and just emphasize training and just.
Got the grip on you, man. That's it.
I
You
enjoy it.
can't
Yeah,
leave.
I 100% enjoy it, and I want to do it more concentrated. I want to do it sort of every other day or something like that, so
Yeah.
that I can actually improve quite a bit. But more so than that, not just that. Obviously, I enjoy it, but there's a ton of fun content I want to create around it, and people
I
actually
think
really
it's some
like
of your most
watching it.
interesting stuff, personally.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have actually been really enjoying it because it gives a very candid look to what's included. What does a session look like? What do you
Yeah.
get for that? How much is it? What do you do before? What do you do after? Just what does a warm
Yeah.
down look like? Just silly things that it sort of goes into the process of it, but not obviously a lot of people know anything about or create content on. So I definitely think that there's a market there for me to just go and be the face of it, just go
What
and be
about
the
for
face of
a
that
group
stuff.
session? You thought about doing that, filming and getting into that?
Yeah, for sure. I've just been doing one to one to
Yeah, that's what
one
I was gonna say.
because I obviously prefer it. Um,
That's
at the
interesting.
moment, yeah, oh,
I
100%.
wouldn't have. I mean, I guess you get a bit more intimate coaching, and it's a bit more clear and
Yeah,
personable. That's just
I
true.
I've
I feel like
not
there's a
done.
camaraderie you get with
I'm not bothered
training at a
about that.
gym.
I'm
That's
not bothered
interesting.
about that at all. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be mean mugging people and be like, I'm not training with you. Obviously not. Obviously, I'd be happy to train with people and learn skills and get better and all these different things, of course. But no, if I can get one to one, just time of a skill is always the best way to learn. Always with anything is like you get
I think that's a good
tailored,
point in sense of
immediate
yeah.
feedback. It's just a
Yeah, I
no
think it's
brainer.
just what you get out of it. Because obviously, I've said loads of times that for me, when I was training jujitsu regularly, it was, just as, less, probably by the time I was doing it regularly for a long time, it was at a point where it was less about the actual technique and learning the skills as much as I appreciated that, of course. And it was one of the big cornerstones. It was more about the social aspect and
Yeah,
improvement to the mental side of things. It's what I look forward to. And it was a chance to just have positive interactions with people, face new faces all the time. And it was a good avenue for that. And for me, that's what it became more about, even though, of course, I was very into learning the art and the skills. I think it's just about what you get out of it, which I mean, it surprises me a little bit actually that
I
you wouldn't really,
th-
you seem so not opposed to it, but
no,
you know what I'm getting at.
yeah, 100%. Don't get me wrong, I will do them, but also as well, it's from a practicality standpoint. When it's a one-on-one, I know, right, okay, I'm going to be in this little area, and it's just going to be me. So I can set up the camera here, and
Yeah,
I
that's
can
a good
just
point.
just let the camera roll and just have everything filmed. Cool. When it's a group session, probably going to be moving about a bit. Probably, obviously, I don't just want to film anyone and be like, cool, I'm just posting this to hundreds of thousands of people, So it's just
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little bit. I know most people will chill with it. Most people don't care, especially in today's market. But that's just another added element to it. Usually in classes, you'll move about to different places, so I have to pick up my tripod, move it over, put it down, in the middle of a session. Um,
You're that guy.
oh,
You're like Ian
100%.
Gary.
I, I,
Ian Gary at
I,
Team Renegade, bro.
the
They're
funny
not
thing
about it.
is, the funny thing is, I before I started doing these things, I still am, to be honest, the last person that ever wants to be doing that. I, I never was one to get my phone out and take pictures of things or film things. I was never one to care about getting photos everywhere. I was never one to, just was never really that bothered, and it never really entered my mind. And I completely had to. And this is quite an important point, actually, because this is true with content creation. Obviously, it depends what sort of style, but you have to hardwire, literally hardwire your brain to change to a place where you document everything. You document everything, and you're constantly thinking of different angles, different shots, different scenes, different things that you need to include in the footage, and it's hard. It's hard to remember all of that, especially if you're not someone intuitively that is just, oh, I'll film everything. Because you get those people. You get those people that whack their phone out and they film everything. I was never one of them people. So I don't like I don't like that side of it, but it's a necessary evil. And if it's a case of, okay, I've got to do this for a job, I'll do it every day and twice on Sunday. So it's not much issue there. But the way I got round it obviously is I bought a smaller, more discreet camera as
Your
well
new
with
baby.
with the DJI. This,
You love
honestly,
it.
best purchase I've ever made. This
Yeah,
is the best purchase.
you said last week. You're still not over
This is the
it.
best. I can't explain how much of a fan I am of this. I knew it would be useful, but in all honesty, there's sometimes things that you tell yourself, "Oh, I'll be better at this if I get this," or And sometimes
Yeah,
it's true, and sometimes you sort of just telling yourself that it's not that necessary. This has been a game changer. I can't even express how much of a game changer this has been. So that you don't have to use your phone and back it all up with little shots here,
yeah,
little shots there, little bits of footage, and then you filtering it through the rest of your camera roll, and everything gets jumbled up and mixed up, and you have to delete things, and it's just none of that issue whatsoever. 4K recording, landscape or portrait. There's a wide lens. It's got double batteries on it. It's just honestly, it's an absolute lifesaver. Everything goes on an SD card, and it's just unbelievable.
can't go wrong.
Unbelievable. No, can't. So yeah, that's my plans. I'm gonna go to the islands, get some more training in, and then yeah, sort of play it by ear a little bit. To be honest,
You're
I've
planning
been
on
in
staying
Bang.
longer. I know you said because I was going to ask you about this because you
Go on.
said on the pod a couple weeks ago. You said you were looking at like maybe 1 to 2 months, but on I just saw you had like a day in the life thing the other day, and you said 2 weeks. I was like, make your mind up, son.
I said two
Which one's it
weeks.
going to be? Yeah, yeah. You said 2 weeks. That's what I remembered it because you were like, I swear you
When?
said 2 months on a post you did a couple of days ago
I said
at
what?
Cashers Corner.mma. Shout out. I honestly, I think you were. I don't know. It was like a day in the life thing where you were going and you were filming certain things. I can't remember what the video was, but you said you were planning on staying for 2 weeks, filming some content. I don't know. Maybe you had that archived and it was planned at the before,
Bangkok.
but
Bangkok.
yeah, that makes sense. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So I
So
should have
no
been clear
ETA
of
then.
that.
You're gonna
No,
emigrate permanently at some point. Is that is that on the agenda?
no, it's
Nah, I'm
not.
joking.
But it makes. I think I spoke about this last week. It makes everything more seamless for my work. It makes things so much easier because not only am I 7 hours ahead, so that basically means I'm a day ahead of my main audiences in the UK and the US. So now when I'm creating content, I'm doing all my work. I'm a day ahead, so I can spend the whole day working essentially, and then the posting windows don't really come out until the evening anyway. So it gives me a full
Mm.
day to sort of do things that I like to do things. Sorry, with work, and then it gives me the evening to work as well, which is for the next day essentially. And then with UFC cards, it's every Sunday morning, so that now I can work throughout the card without it being late and tired and don't want to make too much noise. Now I can work through the card and then make content at the end of the card. So now I'm making 10x, 20x more content on the topics, the trending topics that I've ever made before. And I sat there the other day and I just thought, wow. I was looking at some posts that I was live tweeting and then putting them over to Instagram and then using them for TikToks and things like that. One of the posts on Instagram was getting 40,000 likes. One of them was
It's
getting
crazy.
30,000 likes. And these were all just in live tweeting, if that makes sense. So these were things that I can't do typically. And my reach and my output just went through the roof. And then obviously when I compound that with, okay, there's sunlight here, it's sunny, I can go out and exercise, I can get vitamin D, I can drink fresh smoothies. It just my
It
energy
adds
just
up.
my energy just goes
Yeah,
through the roof, and my productivity is just 10x what it has
that's
been
good.
for a
That's
minute.
good.
So, and then on top of all of that, the most important thing is I can create unique content.
Mm.
Obviously, I'm not the only person creating content in Thailand around this sort of thing, but there's not many. There's not
I
many
don't
people.
think, and take this as a compliment. I mean, it is a compliment, but I don't think there's many people with similar platforms like to you on Instagram in particular who are able to create the variance of content and different styles of things that you do. You've got your, what's the phrase I'm looking for? You do a lot of different things. You cover a lot of bases, is what I'm trying to get at. And I don't think there's a lot of guys in this space that do it as well as you do. I think
Thank
that's
you.
something that you shouldn't take for. I say don't take it for granted. It's your hard work. There's nothing, Are you
I
sure you
don't
don't?
think it's. There's obviously a lot of people who independently themselves are fighters or athletes, and they do a good job of creating content. And especially when they're out here, they do a good job of creating content. I've seen plenty of that, probably more so than
Mm.
most because I research it. So these people aren't necessarily always really big platforms or things like that, but sometimes people are doing a great job. But I think what you said, you hit the nail on the head. I don't think there's a lot of my type of media outlets that are creating those things. I don't. If you think of news outlets in sort of MMA, they usually are never face. They're never brand facing, and they're
Mm.
definitely never usually days in the life or behind the scenes or sessions
Yeah.
in or things like that or food in Thailand. Obviously a food thing is quite a big. I've just edited 2 videos off the back of that as well, and obviously that's a big thing as well, which I didn't mention earlier. Is obviously the food scene here is so prolific that
Massive.
it goes hand in hand with my brand. I keep looking on videos and people keep commenting, okay, cool, but let me see the food shop. Let me see the food shop. Let me see the food shop. So
That's
obviously
cool. That's what
there's
you
a
want.
exactly that.
Yeah, man.
So when I'm here, it's just obviously it's really lovely. It's cool. It's nice to be in the sun and things like that. But from a work perspective, it's such an advantage on so many different levels, so many different
Yeah.
levels. And then what I haven't even mentioned is the events. I have complete access to ONE FC at Lumpini Stadium. So I can stay in Bangkok whenever I like, and then I can visit the stadium whenever I like, or every Friday or Saturday. So it's so
Worse
many
problems to
different,
have, isn't there?
yeah, of
You
course,
know.
but there's just so many different points of where it benefits me and can elevate my brand that it's definitely making me want to do a few months for sure.
Go for it, I say. Why not?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Something I forgot to mention this. It just made me think. There's something that's really cool. That, of course, as a creator yourself, you obviously really appreciate is YouTube have rolled out some really cool new features
Tell me
in
about them.
terms of. So
Because
there's a new
I've got the same the other way around, so I'm happy that you said that because I
Yeah.
can say
So
something
there's a
about that.
new brand. I don't know if this how new this is, but I've only just been shown it. There's a new brand connect tool which allows brands to connect with you directly through YouTube
Ooh,
rather than having to seek out you via email. And
nice.
which is cool, but the kicker with that, which I thought is game changing, is there's now automated and it refreshes, it's updating constantly. It can generate you a media kit with one
Ooh,
click, a PDF media kit which has all of your stats, demographics,
wow,
previous sponsorship work you've done, all in one PDF document, and it does it all for you.
wow,
And it's the coolest thing
oh wow.
ever. And I'm so happy about that because I was planning on making one myself, and I was just like, it's just gonna take me too long, and I just can't be bothered. And now YouTube can do it for you with one click, which I absolutely love. And obviously, the Brand Connect feature, I'm sure, is going to come in very handy in the future. As I think it's obviously such a new thing, so I don't think brands are really in touch with it yet. And obviously, my channel isn't massive in the grand scheme of things, so there's still plenty of work to do there. But I'm sure it'll become a staple feature from in the next few years. It's really cool. It's something I'm really appreciative of.
That is
So yeah,
cool.
I'm a
And
fan.
there's a few things to that. Firstly, you said it takes a lot of time. If anyone's listening to this and thinks it does, you can go on Canva and get templates pretty easily to really halve the time that it takes to do that. Second of all, that
Mm.
is really sick. And third of all, I'm glad that you said that because TikTok have rolled out. You talk about getting excited. I've haven't been more excited in a minute. They've actually rolled out 2 things. Number one, the creativity program has gone away from beta and has gone full time, which is amazing
Does that
because
affect you in any way then? How does that
it,
affect you? Because you already had access to it, right?
well, I had access to it, but it was a beta. So there wasn't anything concrete to say that, okay, this is going to be forever. But now the beta is gone and now it's a full
Interesting.
and integration of the service. So it was more so just a relief on that front, not much else. It was more just a relief. There was nothing to suggest it was going to go away, but you never know. It's a beta,
Of
so
course.
they could have looked at 6 months and gone, you know what, actually, not worth it. I didn't imagine that would be the case, but you never know. Second to that, which is insane, is obviously they've got the creativity program beta, but now they have, off the top of my head, I really can't remember what it's called, the creator research tool, where this is
Sounds similar to something YouTube has.
it's game changing. So you can go on it and it has two tabs, and I'm sure that this is going to get more advanced and more in depth, but it's already great as it is. So it has two tabs. One is the most trending search terms within your niche. So it calculates who you are and then spits out 100 searches of the best search terms around this. And I've used a lot of search tools before. This was by far and away, I could already tell, the most akin to me, first and foremost, but actually accurate. It was not just spitting out obvious ones as well. Conor McGregor and John Jones, and sometimes they just kick out the big names with things like that. But this was giving me really, really good responses. But then what's more than that is you can click into that, and then it gives you the 5 biggest search terms off of the back of that as well. So
nice.
I clicked on one and I got 6 video ideas off the bat.
That's good.
And
I
you
think
can
the
do it
thing
for
with
your
something like that, though,
platform and also in general platforms, so that if you want to look at it a bit holistically, I know you like the word.
Yeah, there it is. It's your
There
favorite.
it is. Been a couple
Been
of
a
weeks.
while. Been a
Been a
while.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got self-conscious. With my vocabulary, I got
No, I
self-conscious.
like it. I like it.
But what you can do now is then you can, obviously, it's important to look into your own one, but then you can actually have a look what's going on elsewhere as well, and you can sort of combine forces, which is pretty good. But it gives you everything, even gives you the metrics of the flipping. Yeah, it's good, man.
I think
was
that's
excited
cool,
when I saw
and
that.
it's for me. I'll just finish on this before we wrap up. That's very dependent on the style of content you make and the kind of creator you are, because I think with the platforms you have, especially, it's even more prevalent on TikTok, just intrinsically, just as a platform, it's more focused on, short fuses, quick fire, trending topics. It's very prevalent on TikTok. But even then, just the style of content you make is very topic focused and what's in the know, what everyone's talking about right now. And that makes sense for your platform. I have the same sort of tools on YouTube. You probably know this, but obviously there's very good research tools in the studio section for YouTube. I don't really use them that much because for me, the style of content I make is less really about trending topics. And I just prefer storytelling a bit more broadly about certain fires. And that's not really reliant on as much on what people are talking about right now. So for me, the style of research I do, I just tend to just scroll the YouTube tab for ideas in terms of from various niches. So not just in MMA. I tend to have more success with that recently, taking ideas from other niches and then applying it to the MMA one. And that's the success I've had most recently with the 7 Deadly Sins video I did. That was from a completely different niche. So I prefer that style of researching because it's just, one, it's a bit more sporadic and you can tap into other niches a bit more easy. But again, that's what I said. It works different for different people. And I'm sure the tools on TikTok are, as you said, they're going to be incredible for most creators on that platform, because as I said, it's more topic driven than some creators on other platforms. I'm getting at, but it's exciting times. I mean, we've talked about how much we're leveling up our games, and I think we can both say to ourselves that we've definitely achieved that. I said that before 2024, I really wanted to level up my content. Here I am working on an hour-long video, which is probably my best work yet by a mile. It's a culmination of everything I've put together before,
Nice.
and I'm very excited with how it's going. I'm very excited. I also launched I don't know if I said this no, I didn't say this last week. I launched my Patreon, which was pretty cool because
Nice.
YouTube membership is just not very good. And I haven't really pushed that so far yet, but again, that's something I'm just going to build up gradually. And I don't really know where the next steps are after this big video. I'm obviously going to do a casuals guide to UFC 300. And then I don't know, I'll have to do some more research, I guess, the next week. But yeah, big year ahead, man. We got plenty of time to go. We're only in March. So I can't wait. It's the end of the year goals. I said 40,000 subscribers. Still a bold claim and still a way away, but definitely achievable with the right drive and hard work. But yeah, unless you've got anything else to add. No, they're good. This has been the MMA Creators Podcast, episode 42. Apologies for this coming out on Tuesday. We should be out back to our regularly scheduled programming on a Sunday. And of course, we will see you then. Cheers.